The first day Mr. Elijah walked into Crestdale Academy, no one noticed him. He wore a simple uniform, carried a mop, and moved quietly through the long, shiny hallways of the school. His skin was dark, his eyes calm, and his back slightly bent from years of hard work. To many, he was just the new janitor. But there was something different about him, something deep, hidden behind his soft eyes and quiet smile. The students didn't care much. Some nodded politely, while others laughed behind his back. The teachers barely spoke to him, except to say, "Clean this," or "That's dirty." He never complained. He just nodded and did his job with care. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., Elijah arrived early. He cleaned the hallways before the rush began. He whistled a soft tune while wiping windows, dusting lockers, and mopping floors. And every morning, he stopped outside room 204, the advanced math class. He would peek inside for a moment, then move on. Mr. Blake's cruel words. Mr. Blake, the math teacher in room 204, didn't like Elijah. He was young, full of pride, and always talked about how smart he was. He often joked about others to make himself look better. One day, as Elijah cleaned the board after class, Mr. Blake said loudly in front of his students, "Careful with that chalk, janitor. Don't mess up the equations. They're probably too hard for you to understand." The class laughed. Elijah paused. He looked at the whiteboard, full of numbers and symbols. His hand moved slowly across it with the cloth, erasing each line neatly. Then, without saying a word, he picked up a piece of chalk and wrote something small in the corner. It was a number, 1.6180339887. Then he placed the chalk down and walked out. Mr. Blake rolled his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? His locker code? More laughter. But Maya, a quiet girl who sat in the front row, stared at the number. Something about it looked familiar. The golden mystery. That evening, Maya went home and typed the number into her laptop. 1.6180339887. It was called the golden ratio, a special number used in art, nature, and high-level mathematics. It appeared in seashells, galaxies, and even the human face. She frowned. Why would a janitor write that? The next day, she waited by room 204 to see Elijah again. As he walked by, she asked politely, "Sir, are you good at math?" Elijah smiled. "I know how to balance things." She laughed. "Like numbers?" He nodded. "Like life." A lesson in silence. Over the next few days, students started to notice something odd. When Elijah passed by math classes, he sometimes paused, looked at the board, and smiled. Once, a student was stuck on a homework question. Elijah leaned in, looked at it, and said gently, "Try starting from the end." The student did, and got the right answer. Word started to spread. The janitor knows math. But Mr. Blake didn't believe it. He was annoyed. "Stop wasting time talking to him," he told his students. He probably just Googled that golden number. The day everything changed. It was a rainy Thursday. Mr. Blake came into class excited. "Today," he said, "I brought a real challenge. This problem came from an international math Olympiad. It's very hard. Even university students struggle with it." He wrote the problem on the board. Letters, numbers, angles, formulas. It looked like a storm of confusion. The class stared at it. No one said a word. Just then, Elijah walked in quietly to clean the trash can. Mr. Blake smirked. "Hey, janitor, why don't you give it a try?" Students giggled. Elijah looked at the board. He didn't say anything. He walked to the board slowly, picked up a piece of chalk, and began to write. One line, then another, then a curve, then a number. In less than 30 seconds, the solution appeared. The entire room froze. Mr. Blake stared in disbelief. Elijah put the chalk down. He didn't smile. He didn't brag. He simply said, "You forgot to apply symmetry in step 2. Then he picked up the trash bag and walked out. Whispers began. After that day, everything changed. Students whispered in the hallways. "Did you see what the janitor did? He solved an Olympiad problem in seconds. Who is he?" Even teachers started looking at Elijah differently. But Elijah remained the same. Quiet, calm, focused. Behind his mop, behind his silence, was a mind no one truly knew. And this was just the beginning. It had only been a few days since Mr. Elijah solved the impossible math problem in Mr. Blake's class, but the news had already spread all over Crestdale Academy. The students whispered in the hallways. Teachers looked at him with new eyes. And Mr. Blake was embarrassed. He didn't like being shown up, especially not by someone who, in his eyes, was just a janitor. The tension grows. Every day after that, Mr. Blake grew colder toward Elijah. When the students mentioned what happened, Mr. Blake would laugh it off. He got lucky, he said. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. But deep inside, Mr. Blake was furious. His pride had taken a hit in front of his best students. So he came up with a plan. He would challenge Elijah again, but this time in front of more people. And this time, he would make sure the question was so difficult that Elijah would fail. The perfect problem. Mr. Blake stayed up late one night, flipping through his old university books. He wanted something complex, something only top-level mathematicians could understand. Finally, he found it, an unsolved math puzzle called the star problem. It had been part of an international competition 5 years ago. Only one student from Japan had ever solved it correctly. Mr. Blake smiled. Let's see the janitor figure this one out. Setting the trap. The next day, Mr. Blake told his class they'd be doing something fun. We're going to play a little game, he said with a grin. We'll all try to solve this math puzzle together. And maybe, just maybe, our friendly janitor can help again. The students laughed, but some of them looked uncomfortable. Maya, who had been watching Elijah closely, didn't like the way Mr. Blake was talking. Still, she stayed quiet. At exactly 12:30, as planned, Elijah walked in to collect the trash. Mr. Blake turned to him and said loud enough for everyone to hear, Mr. Elijah, we need your brilliant mind again. Would you like to try today's question? Elijah paused. He looked at the board. There it was. The star problem. It took up half the chalkboard. Symbols, patterns, and lines stretched in every direction. Some students were already shaking their heads. That's too much. Even I don't understand where to start. Mr. Blake crossed his arms and smiled smugly. Go ahead, he said. Show us your magic. The calm before the storm. Elijah walked slowly to the board. He looked at it carefully. His eyes moved from left to right, then back again. He picked up the chalk. He didn't rush. He drew a small shape, a star within a circle. Then he added numbers, then lines, then angles. The classroom was silent. No one moved. Even Mr. Blake stopped breathing for a moment. Then, Elijah stepped back. Your equation has a mistake, he said calmly. You missed the symmetry. That's why no one sees the pattern. He turned the board around, and there on the backside, he wrote a new version of the problem and solved it in just 2 minutes. The room exploded in gasps, shock and silence. Maya's mouth fell open. One student dropped his pen. Even Mr. Blake looked pale. That's not possible, he whispered. You must have seen this before. You must have cheated. Elijah turned and looked him in the eye. I used to solve problems like this every day, before I learned that some problems in life don't have simple answers. He picked up his mop and walked away. The room stayed silent for almost a minute, a deeper curiosity. After class, Maya ran after Elijah. Please, she said breathlessly. Who are you really? You're not just a janitor. Elijah looked at her kindly. I'm just a man who loves numbers, he said. But numbers don't love you back when you lose everything. Maya's eyes filled with questions, but Elijah kept walking. Behind him, a story was growing, one full of pain, mystery, and a brilliance the school had never seen before. Mr. Blake's growing anger. In the staff room, Mr. Blake threw his papers on the table. This is nonsense, he snapped. That man is trying to embarrass me. Another teacher, Miss Clara, looked at him. Or maybe, she said calmly, he's just smarter than you. Mr. Blake clenched his fists. We'll see about that. The challenge is coming. Later that day, an announcement was posted on the school board. Math showdown. Student versus teacher versus mystery janitor. It would happen during Friday's school assembly. A math battle. One question, one winner, and everyone would be watching. But only Elijah knew the real challenge wasn't math. It was his past. The announcement of the math showdown spread like wildfire across Cresthill Academy. By the end of the day, everyone was talking about it. A janitor against a teacher. No way this is real. What if the janitor wins again? In classrooms, cafeterias, and even the teacher's lounge, the name Mr. Elijah was on everyone's lips. But while the school buzzed with excitement and gossip, Elijah remained quiet. As usual, he came early, cleaned the floors, emptied the bins, and said little. What no one knew was this: Elijah had not always been a janitor. He had once been someone else entirely. The box in the closet. That night, Elijah sat alone in the small room the school had given him. Bare walls, a small bed, and a wooden box under it. He pulled the box out and opened it. Inside were old papers. Some had math equations. Others were certificates, worn and faded by time. One had the logo of a famous university. Another was written in a foreign language. At the bottom of the box was a photo. A younger Elijah, dressed in a suit, standing on a stage. A gold medal hung around his neck. The title on the banner above him read, World Mathematics Championship, First Place. He looked at the photo for a long time. Then he closed the box and placed it back. That was a different life, he whispered to himself. Maya's discovery. Maya couldn't stop thinking about Elijah. There was something in his eyes, a pain he never spoke of, and a silence that spoke louder than words. So she decided to do some research. She searched online for keywords like Elijah, math competition, and black mathematician. After hours of reading, she found an old article. Elijah M. Johnson wins international math title at 24. She clicked on it. It showed a young black man holding a trophy, smiling beside world leaders and professors. This can't be a coincidence, she whispered. She printed the article and brought it to school the next day. A confrontation. During lunch, Maya found Elijah in the hallway, wiping the floor near the lockers. Mr. Elijah, she said softly, is this you? She held out the article. Elijah looked at it and sighed. It was. Maya's eyes widened. Why did you leave that life? You were a champion. Elijah put down the mop. Because life isn't always about what we win. Sometimes it's about what we lose. Maya didn't speak. She could feel the weight in his voice. Elijah continued. I had everything. Fame, job offers, money. But I lost my wife in a car accident. After that, I couldn't think, couldn't teach, couldn't care. I gave up everything and disappeared. His voice broke slightly. Numbers stayed with me. People didn't. Maya's heart sank. She had never imagined such pain behind such a kind face. Mr. Blake's plot. Meanwhile, in the teacher's lounge, Mr. Blake was still planning. He had created a new problem. One not from any book, but from his own mind. This one, he said to himself, has no pattern, no shortcut. It's a trap. He laughed as he imagined Elijah's confusion in front of the whole school. Let's see how smart the janitor really is. The rumors grow. By Thursday, the entire school was buzzing. Posters of the math showdown were everywhere. Students made memes of Mr. Blake sweating. Others made videos about Elijah solving the impossible. Even teachers secretly placed bets. Some rooted for Blake. Most hoped Elijah would win. In the middle of all this, Elijah remained still, peaceful, focused. The flashback. That night, Elijah had a dream. He saw his wife again, smiling, standing by the window, calling his name. Elijah, she said, you stopped believing in yourself. But I never did. He woke up in tears. It had been years since he allowed himself to remember her voice. He looked at the math book on the table, the same one she used to read with him late at night. He whispered, I'll do this, for you. The assembly is set. Friday morning arrived. The school auditorium was full, over 500 students, Teachers and staff were there. A large whiteboard stood in the center of the stage. 3 chairs were placed beside it for Elijah, Mr. Blake, and the top student, Maya, who had been invited to join as a surprise challenger. Elijah walked onto the stage, wearing his regular janitor uniform. Some students stood and clapped. Others simply watched with wide eyes. Mr. Blake walked in next, wearing a sharp suit and fake confidence. Maya joined last, holding a pen and a notebook. The principal stepped forward. Today, we witnessed something special. A friendly match. Brains over titles. He nodded. Let the challenge begin. But what no one knew was that this problem, the one Blake had created, wasn't just a math test. It was a test of truth, pride, and hidden pain. And only one of them was ready to solve it. The school auditorium was packed. Every chair was filled, and students lined the walls, whispering and waiting. Cresthill Academy had never seen anything like this before. A math challenge. Between a teacher, a student, and a janitor. But Elijah wasn't just a janitor anymore. Not to the students. Not after what they had seen. Not after the impossible problem he had solved. Now he was something more. The rules. The principal stood at the center of the stage with a microphone. This is a friendly competition, he said. One problem. One winner. You have 30 minutes to solve it. He looked at each of them. Mr. Blake in his fine suit, Maya with her notebook, and Elijah with his calm eyes and gentle hands. The tension was thick in the air. Begin, the principal said. The problem appears. Mr. Blake walked to the whiteboard confidently. He picked up the marker and began writing. Symbols. Numbers. Angles. It was complicated, confusing, ugly. When he stepped back, the board was filled with strange equations and a single question at the bottom. What is the value of X when the spiral collapses? Students blinked in confusion. What even is that? One whispered, Is this real math? Another asked. Maya's eyes narrowed. She had never seen anything like it. Elijah, sitting quietly, just stared. He didn't pick up a pen. Not yet. He was thinking. Mr. Blake starts. Blake began scribbling. Fast, loud, showing off. He looked up often, making sure people were watching him. This part here uses rotational symmetry, he said loudly, trying to sound impressive. Only someone with real training can see the pattern. Some students clapped. Others looked bored. Maya stayed focused. Her hand moved quickly as she tested different theories. Still, Elijah didn't move. He was just watching the board, breathing slowly. Flashbacks of failure. Inside his mind, Elijah was back in time. Back in his university classroom. Back when he used to teach others. Back when students raised their hands with excitement and called him Professor Johnson. But then he saw the accident. The phone call. The rain. His wife's face before it all went black. He shook his head. Not now, he whispered to himself. Maya gets stuck. Maya had done well for the first 10 minutes. She figured out parts of the spiral. She even found the first 2 patterns. But now she was stuck. It's not working, she whispered. Her pencil snapped. She looked at Elijah. He hadn't written a single thing. The turning point. With 10 minutes left, Elijah stood up. The crowd got quiet. He walked slowly to the board. Mr. Blake smirked. Finally going to try, he said. Elijah didn't respond. Instead, he erased a small part of the board and rewrote it. Just one number, just one tiny change. Then another, and another. Piece by piece, the ugly equations started to look different, cleaner, smarter. Suddenly, a pattern appeared. Even Maya gasped. Oh my God, she whispered. It's beautiful. After the math showdown, Cresthill Academy was no longer the same. The hallways that once echoed with whispers of doubt were now filled with words of admiration. The janitor, the man with the mop, was now someone the entire school respected. Even those who had laughed at Elijah before now looked away in shame or smiled nervously when he passed. But Elijah didn't walk taller. He still cleaned the same floors, still mopped the same halls, still smiled the same quiet smile. Posters, memes, and questions. By Monday morning, Elijah had become an online sensation. Students had made posters. The genius in overalls, Professor Mop, brains don't wear ties. Memes floated around school. A picture of Mr. Blake sweating beside Elijah calmly writing, "When the janitor solves what your teacher couldn't." Even teachers began asking questions. Where did he study? Was he really a professor? Why is someone like him working here? No one had all the answers, not even the principal. Maya's voice grows strong. Maya, who once sat quietly in the back of class, had now found her voice. She stood up in class and said things she never dared say before. Why do we judge people by their job? Why do we think kindness means weakness? Why didn't anyone notice his talent before? Some students rolled their eyes. Others listened. But the ones who mattered began to think differently. Mr. Blake's silence. Mr. Blake, once the loudest teacher in the building, had become quiet. He still taught his math class, but his tone had changed. No more jokes about janitors. No more loud pride. He kept to himself, and some students whispered that the principal had warned him privately. Elijah gets a letter one afternoon. Elijah opened his locker and found a letter inside. It had no name on the front. Just one word, "Thank you." Inside was a handwritten note. "You reminded me to never judge someone by what they wear. You reminded me to dream again. Thank you, Mr. Elijah." He smiled and folded the note gently. He placed it in his pocket, close to his heart. It wasn't the first one, and it wouldn't be the last. A new invitation. That evening, the principal called Elijah to his office. "You've become a legend, Elijah," the principal said with a smile. Elijah chuckled. "I just solved a problem." "No," the principal said softly. "You solved our problem." He reached into his drawer and pulled out a paper. "This is an invitation. The district board wants to speak with you." Elijah looked surprised. "Why?" "They want you to consider teaching again." Elijah froze. He hadn't stepped into a classroom as a teacher in over 10 years. I don't know," he said. "Think about it," the principal replied. "You're already teaching, just without the title." Maya's project. At the same time, Maya had begun a project. It was called Invisible Teachers, the wisdom we walk past every day. She interviewed bus drivers, lunch ladies, janitors, and guards. She asked them, "What did you want to be? What are you good at? What do students not see?" She edited the videos on her laptop and posted them online. Her first post was about Elijah. It had over 100,000 views by the next morning. People commented things like, "I cried watching this. He should be running the school. We need more stories like this." A classroom with no walls. One afternoon, a group of students found Elijah sitting on a bench during lunch. "Mr. Elijah, can you teach us something?" one asked. He looked up, surprised. "I don't have a classroom." "We don't care," Maya said. "This is the classroom." So Elijah picked up a stick and drew circles in the dirt near the garden. "Let's start with something simple," he said. "Do you know what a Fibonacci spiral is?" The students leaned in. They didn't need chairs. They didn't need desks. They just needed someone to believe in. The change begins. More and more students started showing up. Every lunch, every break, Elijah had a small group around him. He taught them math, but also patience, discipline, hope. Mr. Blake watched from a window once, then turned away. He had lost something. Elijah had found something. And the students? They had found someone who saw them not for their scores, but for their spark, a voice from the past. One evening, Elijah got a message request on his old email. He hadn't checked it in years. It read, "Elijah, is this really you? I saw the video. I can't believe it. I always knew you were born to teach. If you ever come back to the university, there's a place for you." It was from his old mentor, his old world, calling him back. Elijah stared at the screen, then closed his eyes. His wife's voice echoed in his heart. "You stopped believing in yourself. But I never did." He whispered, "Maybe it's time." The sun rose slowly over Cresthill Academy. Elijah stood in the hallway, mop in hand as usual. But something felt different. His locker, once just a small metal box, was now covered in sticky notes from students. "Thank you, Mr. Elijah. Best teacher ever. You taught me more than math." Some had little hearts drawn. Others had quotes he had once said. The janitor, who once walked in shadows, now walked in light. The phone call. That afternoon, Elijah sat on the edge of his bed, holding the phone. His hands were shaking. The number on the screen belonged to Fairmount University, the same place he used to teach before his wife passed away. He finally pressed answer. "Elijah," the voice said warmly, "it's been too long. We watched your video." We were amazed. It was Dr. Greer, his old mentor, his friend. "We'd like to invite you back," Dr. Greer continued. "To teach, officially." Elijah was silent. His heart raced. "I don't know if I can," he whispered. "I left that world behind a long time ago." Dr. Greer replied softly. "That world never left you. You just needed a reason to believe again." Maya's reaction. That evening, Elijah found Maya waiting near the garden. She smiled when she saw him. "Did you get the call?" she asked. Elijah nodded slowly. "They want me back, at the university." Maya's eyes lit up. "That's amazing. You'll go, right?" Elijah didn't answer right away. "What if I don't belong there anymore?" he asked. Maya looked at him, serious now. "You belong anywhere students want to learn, and they all want to learn from you." Word spreads. By the next day, the news had spread. Everyone was talking. "Did you hear? The janitor might become a university professor again." "He's leaving?" "He can't leave. Who's going to teach us now?" Even some teachers were asking questions, curious, worried, a little ashamed of how they had treated him before. Mr. Blake overheard it all from his classroom. He looked down at the chalk in his hand. And for the first time, he felt small. The principal's office. Later that day, the principal called Elijah in. "You've changed this school, Elijah, but we know you have a bigger journey ahead." He handed Elijah a new envelope. It was thick. Inside was an official contract from the university. Real offer. Real salary. Real position. "Take your time," the principal said. "Whatever you choose, you've already left your mark here." A visit to the past. Elijah stood outside Fairmount University that weekend. He hadn't been back in over 10 years. The building was the same. But he wasn't. He walked through the hallways slowly, memories coming back with every step. He passed the old lecture room where he once stood at the board with chalk in hand, and his wife sitting in the front row, smiling proudly. "You still love this, don't you?" Her voice echoed in his mind. He closed his eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "I do." Decision time. That night, Elijah sat alone. He looked at the contract again. Then at his uniform. He thought of the students. The ones who sat with him at lunch. The ones who asked him questions in the hallway. The ones who called him Mr. Elijah with respect in their voices. He thought of Maya, her project, her courage. He thought of his wife, her dreams for him. And then, he made his choice. A message to the school. On Monday morning, Elijah wrote a letter and gave it to the principal. At the next assembly, the principal read it out loud. "To my students at Cresthill, I came here to clean floors, but you helped clean my heart. You reminded me that it's never too late to rise again. I will be leaving next month to return to the university, but I will carry your love with me. And I will always come back, because once a teacher, always a teacher." Mr. Elijah Johnson. There were tears in the audience. Even some teachers wiped their eyes. Mr. Blake stands up. After the assembly, something unexpected happened. Mr. Blake stood up in front of his math class. He looked serious, humbled. "Class," he said, "I owe someone an apology. For years, I thought a title made a person smart, but I was wrong." He walked out of the room and went straight to the janitor's office. Elijah was cleaning the sink. Mr. Blake hesitated, then said, "I'm sorry for everything." Elijah smiled gently. "Thank you." And just like that, the past began to heal. The goodbye begins. In the last few weeks, students spent every break with Elijah. They brought him gifts, a small gold mop from the art club, a framed quote, "The greatest teacher is the one you almost ignored," a notebook full of letters from students. Each letter began with, "Dear Mr. Elijah," and ended with, "Please don't forget us." The morning of Elijah's last day arrived quietly. There was no big celebration, no balloons, no confetti, just a simple sunrise, washing soft light over Cresthill Academy. But inside the school, hearts were not quiet. Students whispered to each other in the halls. Teachers stood by their doors with folded arms and heavy eyes. Everyone knew this day was different, because the man who once walked with a mop was walking into history. The final bell. When the first bell rang, the school didn't move like usual. Instead, students were told to gather in the auditorium. No one knew what would happen, but everyone was already emotional. Even Maya clutched her notebook tight against her chest. Mr. Blake, too, sat in silence at the back row, eyes lowered. At the front, standing by the microphone, was Elijah, still in his janitor uniform, still calm, still kind. But this time, everyone watched him with respect. Elijah steps up. He walked up to the mic slowly. No script, no speech in hand, just his heart. He looked out at the crowd of young faces. Faces that once ignored him, now waiting for his words. He smiled and said softly, "When I first came here, I was invisible. People walked past me like I was part of the wall, and that was okay. I didn't come here to be seen. But then something happened. You saw me. You, students, taught me something that no book ever did. You taught me that it's never too late to start again." There was silence. Not one whisper, not one phone out, just eyes full of emotion. The whiteboard surprise. Behind Elijah was a whiteboard. He picked up a marker and wrote something. 13 to 1 equals 12. Then he paused. The crowd was confused. He smiled and said, "Now watch this." He wiped the 1 and rewrote it as the letter I. The board now read, 13, I equals 12. Elijah turned back to the crowd. Sometimes the only thing holding us back is I, me, myself, my fear. Once you let go of ego, pride, and fear, you unlock something powerful. The students clapped softly. A few even wiped away tears. Maya speaks. Maya, sitting in the front, raised her hand. "Mr. Elijah, what made you come here in the first place?" He looked at her and paused, then replied, "After my wife passed away, I lost my way. I used to teach in universities, big rooms, big crowds. But after losing her, the world felt small. So I picked up a mop, not because I had to, but because I needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere I could remember who I was." He looked out at the crowd again. "And this school, this place, helped me find that man again." The gift. As Elijah stepped down from the stage, the principal came up holding a small box. "Before you go, Mr. Elijah, we have something for you." He opened the box. Inside was a gold nameplate that read, "Professor Elijah Johnson, Crestill's greatest teacher." The students stood up, one by one, clapping, cheering, some crying. Mr. Blake, too, stood slowly and clapped the loudest. The final walk. After the assembly, Elijah took one final walk through the halls. He touched the lockers gently. He looked at the garden bench where he once taught Fibonacci spirals. He walked past the janitor's closet and smiled. Then he stepped outside. Maya and a few students followed. "Where will you go now?" Maya asked. Elijah looked up at the sky. "To teach," he said. "Anywhere they'll have me." Then he turned back and said, "And remember this, your uniform doesn't decide your intelligence. Your heart does." Years later, the video fast-forwards in time. Now Maya is older. She stands at a podium at a university graduation. She's wearing a professor's gown. Behind her is a picture of Elijah. She says to the crowd, "The man who taught me the most didn't wear a tie. He wore a janitor's shirt. He taught with love, not with power. And because of him, I became a teacher too. Thank you, Mr. Elijah, for your last lesson and every lesson." The crowd stands and claps. The camera zooms in on the photo of Elijah, smiling, holding a mop. And behind him, a whiteboard that reads, "Never underestimate quiet people. They carry the loudest wisdom."